Good day and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each of these episodes, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business owner, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $1 million a year. Recently, I just restarted the podcast. We're now on episode 74. And I wanted to kind of take today to go back over some of the things in the last few months. There have been quite a few things that I've put into play, and they've been very helpful, each one of them in different ways. So I want to cover each of those and kind of talk a little bit about them because they are all intertwined a bit in how everything is moving forward. Now, one of the first things that I went back to, which was a program by Aaron Fletcher, and it's from his Fletcher Method program. And I reestablished something of a business plan. I'm still looking to make my $1 million a year. So that's a track process that you have to get somewhere about $100,000 a month, give or take a little bit. But what I wanted to do was actually over engineer that and not say I want to get $1 million in 5 years. What I want to be is $1 million in 1 year. And so I built in this process that came from Aaron Fletcher. It's a part of it called the Bulletproof Business Plan. And it's a four quadrant kind of a matrix that you build out your 3-year vision, the why you're doing what you're doing, the 1 year goals, the what you're actually doing, the 90-day strategy, which is the how, and then what you're doing this week, which is the now. So each of these you fill out and you can actually start working your way backwards in some respects. But I started at the 1 year goal because that $1 million I want to be making in plenty of time to apply for the 2 Comma Club, which is coming next year. That would be $1 million or more in sales in preferably a funnel. Projecting this out, if I had a $25,000 per week average, I would be looking at $1.3 million by the end of a year. If I can set my profits at about 40%, which is not unreasonable for a business, to include all the consultants and everybody I'm going to need, I'm going to have about $520,000 left over. That's $500,000. That ain't bad. I'm looking in terms of that at moving my way backwards into the 90-day strategy and then this week's actions. I've been putting a lot of the pieces together, and I want to kind of cover those pieces that get me to this $1.3 million with a 3-year vision of $5.5 million in revenues and keeping that same 40% profit margin at about $2.2 million on the profit for the business. I'm really looking this week at putting more of these pieces together and spending my time out meeting with people, spending time reaching out to people, but at the same time building my experience on the way through so that this becomes easier to accomplish. This week's actions are pretty straightforward. I'm looking to move into the Dream 100 Type 1 and 2. We talked about that last week, or actually Monday, I guess it would be. And, measuring to track at $75,000 in revenue in this 90-day period. Now, that's not at the end. I mean, that's roughly $1,500 a week. It's not unachievable, especially at a fixed fee per day kind of an environment or a fixed fee on your programs. You should be able to accomplish that. That shouldn't be all that hard. Having used that bulletproof business plan, and I recommend everybody kind of look up something like this. There are lots of them that are out there. You see people putting together 5-year plans and what have you, and getting it down into a small quadrant, really easy to deal with, is 4 quadrants of a rectangle. If you can't get it concise, you probably can't achieve it. You're either going into too much detail and not giving yourself any flexibility, or you're not going to be capable of reaching the level of detail you're going to need to achieve that. So Keep these things really simple. I recommend everybody do it. And for this week's actions, just take a sticky note and put what those are and tape it into that fourth quadrant down in the bottom right. And that's what you're going to be doing for the week. So, reorganizing this podcast was one of the things that was set up for last week's area. And so this week now, we're moving on to a lot of different other types of things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about now that you've got the basic tool in play, I want to talk about what's happened in the last few months and what has really helped me to get restarted in this process. Before I broke off, I was dealing with a program. I didn't have a really clear name for it. I didn't have a really clear process for it. And so I decided to go into different tracking for different names and what have you. And I came up, those of you who know my last name is Bridges, it should be Bridges Business Builder, or what we call B3. And this is a B3 Accelerator program. It really is built for different types of businesses that have unique challenges to them, mostly in terms of how much funding they have available and how much they can deal with. A lot of companies can get funding, but then you've got to have a really good plan for it, especially if you've used the family and friends first round of funding. You've probably got people that are behind you that may not necessarily know a lot about business. So your business plan is going to be a little bit flexible. If you went in for formal funding, you'd have to have a complete business plan, and that's a whole different thing. But the B3 Accelerator really comes in three programs. The startup, which we treat it as a bootstrap startup. I don't want to go out and have you get a bunch of money from people. That doesn't make any sense. That puts just too much pressure on you. We can save that for down the road, right? And there are lots of ways to bootstrap your own startup. The second program is the Platinum. And that's the one that most people have expressed an interest in. That's the one that's most fully fleshed out. And that's the one that I have all the built-in pieces for and have used all of my experience to put into this. That's essentially a done-with-you program that is, there's a lot of hand-holding. There's a good deal of coaching, especially on the back end. This is essentially a one-year program. We're going to be moving you through a lot of changes in the Platinum program that are going to be solving a lot of the issues that I've seen over and over again, whether that's the entrepreneur themselves getting in the way of their business or not having a good enough plan, whether that's the entrepreneur and how they do hiring, right? And then the systems you need to put into play. And we have all these systems that I've built year after year, all the way through the technology, the operations, and then, of course, marketing. Marketing is, if you're going to grow your business, you have to have marketing in place. And that particular piece is so key to everything you're doing, that you're going to need to have that set up later down the line as a system. You'll do marketing up front, but it won't be systemized such to the point that it will be when you get to the end of the second phase. And then the third phase is what we call the acceleration phase. This is where we start building on success. And those types of areas that affects are all covered in the Platinum program. And there's coaching available at the end. And then there's an Elite program. This is different. This is going to be more along the lines of a mastermind combination with coaching. This is really dealing with people who have critical issues they simply cannot get past. And we're going to involve as much of the B3 Accelerator as we need to. But this is for more established businesses. The startup and the Platinum are anybody up to about 2 to 3 years. When you get up into the Elite, you're dealing with people that have either accelerated their growth massively and they're at a sticking point, or they've gone through their funding and they're at a standstill. They can't get past that. And that happens quite frequently. And that's what the elite program focuses on. It's almost all coaching, but it is pulling all the pieces of the B3 Accelerator into the business to make sure we fine tune all the details through your business. So that's the B3 Accelerator program in a nutshell. It's really something that I built out of going through the Fletcher Method program. And I've mentioned Aaron Fletcher before, not just on the Bulletproof Business Plan, but in some of the past podcasts I've done. The Fletcher Method is a good process for developing a complete program that everything you need all the way through, all of your marketing is clear, regardless of whether you're in the beginning stages of doing what you're doing, if you're in the later stages of what you're doing, or if you're stuck in how you market your business, how you get to different aspects. So the Fletcher Method was how I created the B3 Accelerator. And it's a long process that I've personally gone through because I didn't stick into it as tightly as I should have. So in this particular piece, I'm looking, with people to become an actual certified partner of the Fletcher Method. And so that's an award I want to be able to bring in, because that'll be something that is a very structured marketing program that when we start doing marketing automation, it puts the entrepreneur right in the hot seat of getting things done. Another thing that has happened, and I went through this partly in, I think it was March, was the 2 Comma Club Live from ClickFunnels. Russell Brunson and team put this together. It was, at that time, very basic because COVID was, hardcore going everywhere at that time. And it was still catching people off guard. Then recently I went through Funnel Hacking Live, and that was a great experience. I've mentioned that. It's something that you have to actually see and experience to really understand. But it keeps you on your seat. It keeps you exposed to some of the greatest people that are out there that have made millions of dollars in their funnels. They've been single mothers. They've been single fathers. They've been married couples that have lost everything. The thing you keep hearing about is all the people that lost all their real estate and they had to start all over again. And how did they do it? Well, this was how they did it. They started using, some of the resources of ClickFunnels and some of the other aspects and put this all together and said, hey, look, here's how we're going to get this. And then they build the program, they get the interest in it, and next thing you know, people start buying what they're looking for. And so that's a good thing to kind of see and hear from these people. You don't just see it, you get to hear it and kind of experience it through the eyes of the person that has done it. And that's similar to the idea of the 30 Days book that Russell put out, where if you've lost it all, how would you go rebuilding your financial empire, if you will? And so that's really good. And that brought me, speaking of that brought me to the last piece that's really changed everything. And that's the Grant Cardone concepts. He has brought a lot of people into his 10X programs. And their financial programs in some respects, but a lot of times it's just get out there and do it. You've got to get out there, meet people. You got to put, hand to hand. You can't just send them an email and hope that it gets there. You have to reach out to people and actually meet with them. It's the best way, if you can, to get things going. And I've been kind of reading through and getting used to all of the information. A lot of it is sales. A lot of it is prospecting, but a lot of it is just flat putting the right systems into your business that matter. And I've been doing a lot of that, integrating it into my B3 Accelerator program so that people have different choices. You can go this direction, you can go this direction. You can do it yourself, DIY program if you want. But we really recommend a done with you kind of a program. I want to make sure that I have options for people by integrating these multiple plans, these different plans. And there are pieces that you can do of one, and there are pieces of others that you can do, and there are pieces of others. You can put together a custom program. That's more along the lines of the elite program that I would be doing in the B3 Accelerator. So this is kind of what's happened in the last few months. A lot of this has been really putting together the concept of a complete program. This is something that if you have a business at one level, you need to have something. The B3 startup is really for people. I have some of my clients, I think I mentioned, that didn't even have a company name. They didn't even know where to start. This is a way for us to start the process and go through and build in the systems and structure that you need so that right from the get-go, you as an entrepreneur, you become a business builder. Really understanding how growth works, how to work in the process itself. So that's what's happened for me, and it's been a really interesting ride this last few months, and it really kicked me in the keister. And so now I'm putting all the pieces together. I'm happy about what I'm seeing, so that's a really good thing. That's enough for right now of where I've been. I don't want to go too far out there. I do want to reemphasize this bulletproof business plan as a concept for people and really figure out what is your why. Why are you doing this? What is important, but the why and the how. How do you do it? There's a book out there called Who Not How. And I've mentioned this before, but basically it's how to surround yourself with other people who already know how to do it. You as the business owner don't necessarily have to be the only person doing all the work. You don't need to learn how to do Adobe Photoshop in order to build a website. Find somebody that's out there that already does it. Find the one that's within the budget you can get, or scale back your needs a little bit so that you can get, say, just a single landing page. You don't need complicated websites that are 30 pages deep. You need to get the basics across right now. You need to be very simple, and that's a single page. That's good enough. As you're doing this, you need to be concise. You need to be clear. Having this kind of a why you're doing it is important. What you're doing is, here are my tools that I'm using. The how, I can implement other people to get that. That's what part of the Dream 100 is all about, is how do I get it? By handing it to other people that know how to get it for me or get it with me. And finally, what you do now that's going to get you to that 90-day strategy, which will get you to your what for 1 year. And then use the why as your motivation, your lifestyle. How are you going to be different in your lifestyle? And your structure. How are you going to build a team? And eventually, how are you going to exit? A lot of people don't think about that. It's really key. And I've still been spending a lot of time on my exit strategy, because as long as you have no exit, you're going to be doing this until the day you die. And the idea is to build it up strong enough so you can hand it off to somebody who can then run it for you as if you were doing it. And then you're getting passive income from that. You're going to get, as the business continues growing and doing, you're going to be getting more back. This is that whole thing that Grant Cardone brought to the equation, is how do you get passive income? You can't build wealth off of having a job. You have to have a job in the beginning, but eventually you have to convert to getting it over to somebody else running it, somebody else doing it, and you get passive income from that. So this is really a key element of being a successful business owner, is having an exit strategy. Not one that will kill you, but one that will actually support you and let you keep going. So that's enough for this time around. We've talked pretty in detail about the Bulletproof Business Plan, and I want to thank you very much for your time here. This is always such a wonderful thing for me to do the podcasting. I have my ideas in the few days before, but then I actually sit in front of the microphone. Actually, I stand in front of the microphone and talk with you as though you're right there. And that is so important. That's so important to be able to talk to people, even if it's a person in your own imagination. I don't know if you do this. I picture a person, their face, based upon their voice if I've never met them before. And this is something that's very similar here is the podcasting is getting up and picturing a face and pretending that you're doing all the things that you would do. My hand movements, anybody that knows me knows I must be Italian because my hands are constantly working and I'm framing things and boxing things and showing ideas around it's like I'm actually talking to a person. So this is something that is really key for me and is really good. I hope that you enjoy it, that the whole idea of this comes across for you in a way that you can look at and say, wow, that's really good. That's a really good idea. Or wow, I never really thought about that. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off. This is Randy Bridges for the Budding Entrepreneur, wishing you the best in your health, your wealth, your business, your family, everything about you. Take care. We'll come back next Monday with a whole series of new ideas.